What's up, my know-it-alls? Oh my God! Welcome to the very first live stream that of the new Mr. Know-it-all Live. So I really appreciate everybody who is here. Thank you guys so much. Sorry for the being late thing. I'll get the hang of those. So for me, it's a lot of the times I do other shows with people that are in a different time zone, and so I'm always getting the numbers and mixed up and whatnot. But either way. This first live stream, I wanted to talk about a couple different things going on, and absolutely, we're going to be dropping. We're going to talk about the X-Men leaks and look at some of those stills. I'm not going to play anything because they're taking them down everywhere. Also, going to look very much at the Stranger Things Byler drama that has unfolded unbeknownst to me, because I had no clue that a lot of that was going on. Also, I'm probably going to dip my toe in mentioning a little bit of some of the other things that have been happening. So, like some Derry, Welcome to Derry stuff, and some other things. Just kind of my thoughts overall and whatnot, as well as hopefully getting my feet wet and letting everybody understand sort of what the channel is going to be and what we're doing. Thank you, everyone who gave me kind messages and thoughts. The biggest thing that's happening right now in the world of YouTube, to kind of give you a little behind the curtain look, is that they're making algorithm changes. Specifically, they're making changes to how videos are shared or pushed specifically to YouTube TV. And along with some of the other stuff that I mentioned in my announcement video about what I'm thinking about and what we're trying to sort of do with the channel, I have a really complicated calendar in front of me that I've been working through, kind of scheduling some things. But the shows or programming that is designed for television, the YouTube TV experience, the YouTube TV algorithm, by my understanding, according to the Creator Hub, as it has to do with that particular platform, is going to push and promote live streams, which immediately made me go, well, you know what? I've wanted to do live streams for a while. This may very well be the springboard that I need to both motivate me and entice me to jump in. By the way, we're streaming both on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/arealknowitall, as well as on X, which is, I guess, is x.com/Mr. Know-It-all, because I got my Mr. Know-It-all handle. Yay! That was really fun. It was an abandoned handle, and they let me get it back, which has made me very happy. Overall, I'm excited. I'm excited. Not for the reasons you might think, because a lot of folks might be under the impression that when you do stuff in this space, you get affected by other things. Hollywood, streaming, the whole Netflix. Is Netflix going to do the thing? Is Paramount going to buy them? And all that stuff. And there's been so many people who try to take on this concept or this idea that we've got to I've got to pick a side, you got to fight, you got to whatever. I don't do that. I never have. And that's kind of what I'm not a rage baiter, but I'm always open for the conversation. So by all means, the comments are definitely open, and I would love to hear from you guys on either of the platforms that I'm streaming on right now. To you guys, I'm eventually going to figure out how to do this on TikTok, because I've been being told by a ton of people over there that I apparently should be there live streaming. I don't know. We'll see. And hey, preacher, good to see you, brother. Yeah, LOL. I love him. But yeah, no. Overall, though, we're working equally hard to sort of get some other people on. I know that there'll be times I'm going to have Salty on from Nerd Fights, and there's going to be times I'll have Gonzo on, who you guys remember from the previous attempt at an iteration of Nerd Fights. Also might have Danny Dork Knight, who knows. But overall, again, I'm more looking toward trying to get as much of the information that I normally would use for my videos and do it here instead. And I feel like that's a much more productive and fun way of trying to kind of encourage and move this thing forward, if you will, doing it. But let's go ahead and let's talk some of this stuff. As I'm sure you've all known, there was a trailer that leaked. And I say a trailer that leaked, and I've seen memes online. I don't know how secure you could possibly be, because so far every single trailer, the Steve Rogers trailer, the Thor trailer, and now the X-Men centric trailer has leaked. The big question surrounding the leaks, so to speak, is, are they real? In a world where AI exists and AI is a major thing, we're consistently and constantly coming up with these really incredible looking images. Like, they are incredible and could very well be genuine, only to find out they're not, that they're AI. As someone who dabbles in AI, you can tell by my thumbnail, because my thumbnail is literally just I went to Nana Banana, which is Gemini's, Google's AI thing. And I was like, take this frame, clean it up, and the character in it is being portrayed by James Marsden, who plays Cyclops. And so and it gave me that image in the thumbnail. And I was like, sweet. Okay, so the thumbnail is clearly an AI version of what this scene is. Now, the thing, matter of fact, I don't know why I'm over here bearing the lead on that. Let me switch over here. Here we go. All right, so for those of you playing at home, the trailer information has dropped. If you don't want to be spoiled, by the way, go away. Don't be here, because that's what I'm gonna be. I talk a lot of this stuff, and I'll let you know if it's not gonna be spoilery or whatever else, and we'll kind of keep that pretty safe and whatnot. But because there's two versions that are very similar. One is the version that's being taken down. The other is the AI version that people did, that take the existing information we know and then turns it into sort of like really realistic looking, but they're not real at all. And so for me, it was making sure that I could find the right ones. And so the images I'm going to show are actually the ones, real basic stuff. It's not crazy. And we'll go through them real quick. I'm going to go through the highlights. I tried to get the best looking that I could find online, and they don't, which they're still blurry because it was apparently filmed somewhere or whatever. And I'm not sure what the big dots are, the big color dots are, but they're consistent on the version that is being taken down everywhere. I've seen the motion version of this, by the way, so I do have it, but I didn't grab there were some stills that are really rough looking, and I didn't grab those. But the trailer, again, last chance to back out. The trailer short begins more or less with a broken down image of, and I might be getting some of this stuff out of order. You really have to check in with some of the leakers out there and some of the guys. I know my friends over at my homeboy Chad over at the Geeky Cast. He's really good at confirming a lot of this stuff. So by all means, on whatever platform you're on, whether it's X or I think he's on, I know he's on TikTok, and then also on YouTube. So the thing starts more or less with there's like a voiceover. I believe it's Patrick Stewart. There's a version of this where it's like, it's Doomsday's voice or whatever, Dr. Doom's voice. It's not. It's the version of this that's real is it's got Charles Xavier saying very over the top melodramatic stuff as he does, and it shows the wrecked sign from the X Mansion, and you're like, oh my god, it's the X Mansion side. It's crazy. Followed by him rolling up in what we understand to be a yellowish version of the classic X-Men chair, meaning the one he had with the big X on the wheel and whatnot. But I guess it's got like yellow on the side or whatever. Anyway, and he's sitting down and he's talking and he's playing chess. I had a still of the chessboard, but it was really rough looking, and it was not easy. Or it would have been super blurry, and I didn't want to do that. And then they cut to what looks like overgrown Magneto, played by Ian McKellen, Sir Ian McKellen, who's so long hair, overgrown beard, and whatnot. And they're talking, and then we get several shots of different things. But then the one that everyone's talking about is primarily having to do with whether or not the scenes of Cyclops are real. And it looks like James Marsden, who plays Cyclops in the classic 90s X-Men outfit, and he is he's dealing with some things or whatever, things are burning around him, and then ultimately culminating in the big shot that everybody loves to see, which is him explosively just shooting his laser up into the air, very a la the intro of X-Men 97 or the classic animated X-Men show. So that's the gist of what makes this whole thing sort of what for me, what makes it work really well, because I'm a big fan of making sure that these things are genuine, because I didn't. The last thing I want to do is bring anything to you guys that is going to be like, oh, well, that's fake or whatever else. I mean, we might talk about stuff like if it's interesting, like probably when the whole X-Men thing was going on, or not X-Men, when the Steve Rogers trailer thing was going on, I would have probably been real big on trying to make that happen. But at the end of the day, it didn't. It didn't go off the way I thought it was supposed to, and so you sit here and you say, okay, whatever. But yeah, that's the gist of that. I feel like it's one of those things where we question so much because of everything that we're dealing with, and it's just really a matter of making sure that you figure out the right stuff and whatnot. But and that's what we did. That's what I did. I just wanted to do that. So that's the X-Men trailer. And the X-Men trailer it's such a. I was so leery about the possibility of even putting this today that I really felt like, well, to do anything else would be it would be irresponsible, because that's what we're talking about. All of us, that's what we're talking about. And I feel like we need to be able to really, really sort of enjoy the things that we want to enjoy as best we can. So anyway, hopefully you guys have some thoughts. Let me know. Would love to hear in the comments what your thoughts are about all this. But you know, as all things do, we're going to shift over a little bit. Again, lots of movies, lots of things coming out. I do have some other reviews and stuff that are going to be coming out soon, and then over the next few days, we're going to talk about Fallout later and whatnot. And I have my top on New Year's Eve. I will be dropping my my live stream that morning will be New Year's Eve morning at noon or lunch, whatever, is going to be the 10 best and worst things I watched. I didn't want to do a, best movies of the year, worst movies of the year. I feel like that's kind of corny and everyone else is doing some version of that. But I've seen a lot of things, and some of those things I haven't reviewed. Most things I have. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that as well. And we'll get into all that as time allows, whatnot. So the more you dig into stuff, we dig into things like Stranger Things. Let's start talking a little bit about that. Let's talk about this whole thing. So I've seen part 1 and 2, and I do have a video for part 1 and 2 coming out finally, because again, I've been sort of behind the ball with some things, but you guys saw the announcement. And so for me, I got into looking at when I watched it, I wasn't very much aware of that whole thing. That whole, I mean, I think we all kind of got the impression that Will was gay. At least that was literally a subplot of a previous season. So I don't know why that's, or at the very least, the implication thereof. And so that's, I need you to understand, very minor in the grand scheme of things and issues that I have with the series so far. Season 5 part 1 started like a cannon shot out of just boom. It just was amazing. And I was thrust into all of what they're doing. And my immediate reaction, because I watched it with Baby Know-It-All and Boyfriend Know-It-All, and their feeling was like, oh my gosh, everything's happening so quickly. What were they building this stuff? But everything was happening quickly, but nothing was happening. Does that make sense? That's how I saw it. And so as you started into this season, there was very little in terms of, this is all of this backstory that you need to have. And so they jump in. First off, everybody's way old now. And that's the problem you have with the show. And everybody's already had that conversation. But then you get into the fact that the stories being written in the past, you would have had a lot of the stuff that's happening character-driven wise, you would have had in a longer, more protracted version, and you would have gotten a little better. You had better to chew on the characters and chew on events. Now, everything's just going. And then now they just recently released a bunch of information saying that how the actual scenes, some of them were cut, and that some of those things are alter the very story itself, and you're like, whatever. So, and I'm fine with that. I really am, because I feel like those are creative decisions that are made. We trust the Duffers. Why are we going to give them a hard time about it? Then you get to this scene. So the fact is, most of the season for me has been, somebody pointed out, and one of the reviewers I watch and read pointed out, it felt like every so often the whole group would come together, they would discuss the dilemma they're facing, And then someone would pop in and say, oh, well, it's this, and give an explanation. And then somebody would come in and say, oh, you mean like this? And explain it again, maybe a little dumber down, almost like nobody trusts the audience. And then they would go execute whatever the plan was. But you would get these mass info dumps. And I was like, oh, maybe whatever. And so I waited till part two, and part two comes out now. And in part two, it was exactly that. And so then you get to this moment where I was already of the mind that they were addressing it somewhat with him talking to Robin, and I was like, all right, well, fine, whatever. We're getting more clear layout, and then you get to this scene that literally stops the forward momentum of the story, such as it is that they're telling. And I'm like, what is happening here? And you get this slow build setup, the slow burn setup. He's talking to his mom, and he's hemming and hawing, and then he's eventually talking to Mike, and he's hemming, and finally he gets everybody together. And everybody's making their own jokes. My whole thought is, can you imagine being the group as in real life, as they're like, all right, everybody, come on in, just come on, everybody, just find a seat, just file in. Will's got something else to talk about. Just go ahead, everybody, come on, just come in. Like, that's how it feel like it would have come across, which feels extraordinarily horsey. In the film and TV, horsey just feels like you're taking a ride. Everything's up and down, nothing's steady and smooth, and so that's how it felt. It felt horsey to me, and then I got to the end of the scene, and it was this. Everybody's already pointed out, why is he coming out in front of all these other people? And so, in defense of the scene, because I need to sit here and say, look, there is a world in which you sit here and go, in the era that the show is set in, that was a large, if not very big, traumatic, if not even dramatic event. And we take it for granted today, but at the same time, in the context, you sit here and you say, okay, well, that's a significant thing in his life. That being the case, that's when you poke holes and go, so why are there so many strangers there? So why did he suddenly come out in front of his teacher? Which, I mean, and I'm wonderfully happy that everyone's accepting, but let's be real, in that era, not everyone would have been accepting. Just on the back of sheer numbers, just the idea on the back of this, that somebody would have been like, oh wait, that's the wrong move, man. Like, the people would be, oh, you don't want to do that, or you just need to blah. Or at least somebody should have said the corny thing that we would have said in the 80s, maybe you didn't find the right person or whatever else, blah, blah, like something. I don't know. I feel like in their attempt to be inclusive and make it whatever this was, that they lost the reality of that era. Now, there would have absolutely been supportive friends and family and whatever else. I think the family part was also a little like tricky to play with, but I feel like, whatever. So that's the problem you have when you tell stories from hindsight. By that I mean, here we are now, 2025, telling a story set in the mid 80s, and you sit here and go, but you try to paint it with our sensibility. It's the whole why does Disney put warnings in front of these shows instead of editing? People originally wanted Disney and Warner Bros. And everybody else to edit out the problematic stuff, and it's like, no, but that's part of our history. I don't care how you feel one way or another. You don't like it, cool, don't watch it. But either way, that's a part of our history. It's where we come from. And if you rewrite it too much, you'll end up losing all of those things. So would love to hear your thoughts on that scenario, that whole situation. Did it surprise you? Were you not that he came out, but the way it was handled? And ultimately, rather than people jumping in the comments being all like, no, terrible, would have been bad with this and that, whatever else, what would have made the scene work better? I think is more the approach I want to come at it from. Because I think with everything, especially when having come from the film and TV industry, my wife and I did, I feel like you reach a place where you sit here and you say, okay, is the idea bad? No, the idea is not bad. But the problem is they stopped right at the surface and said, we should have an inclusive scene where he comes out and everyone's accepting and blah, blah, blah. Great. The next part of that, the deeper part of that, should have been, let's explore the conversation. And that's what they would have done in the past. Seasons 1, 2, 3, we would have got more of that explanation. We would have chewed on that through line for an episode or two and really kind of dealt with how it not only affects him, but ultimately affects the group and everything else. They tried their best to hand wave it away by doing the whole, because it helps him not be free of Vecna's ability to latch on and grab and whatever else. I get it. Okay, you established the psychological stakes of him coming clean, if you will, and being honest with his family and open with everybody and whatnot. But I feel like we didn't really explore any of those things. And the thing is, you don't have room to do that now. Honestly, this scene probably should have been closer to the top, and of the season. And at least you would have had some time to process it. And then this could have been the moment when everyone says to him, or somebody says to him unprovoked, regardless whether we understand it, accept it, whatever, blah, blah, we love you, or something. You know what I mean? Something within the context. I feel like understanding where they were in that era, that's what you want. That's what you want to try to pull off in that scene. And if you don't do that, then what are you doing it for? What are we doing? So it felt sloppy overall for me. And I think there's a world in which you stop and you ask yourself, well, what is the, like, why do this? Why have this whole scene just be him talking to a room of mostly his friends, some of his family, but then a bunch of strangers as well. People who, now mind you, obviously Vicky doesn't have an issue with her because she's kind of in the same boat or whatever. So she's kind of like, oh yay. But like, you've got all kinds, you got Kali, you've got, his teacher, all these other people that at the end of the day, you want to, I know that I guess there's a scene that was cut or something about Max, but that felt horsey to me too, as a whole. Because he talks through Vecna, but at the same time, I missed the part where we establish that that it was him who had told Max to run. So there's a whole bunch of people who are, we have a bunch of people who want to argue that the scene is woke and whatever else. And I'm like, no, it's just a thing. It's a thing, I feel like. And I think that there was a better approach to it that would have at least been faithful to the era and would have said, hey, this is what was happening at the time. And you can have certain discussions like that. And if anything, it would have been really informative and interesting. Because the 80s wasn't just about the music and the clothes and the whatever and the TV shows and stuff. It was really about how culture was handling things. Remember, around this time, you had there was this massive uptick in the rise of HIV, and so there were questions happening in the community about in the gay and lesbian community about whether or not that was my point is, there's a snapshot of that era that could have happened that I would have found fascinating at the very least. But they chose to go instead the very lazy, very surface route. And I'm okay with that too. But it could have been handled better. And I think we would have enjoyed it a lot better had it been handled that way. So anyway, again, would love to hear your thoughts, comments. Love to discuss that with you guys. Sort of see where where you land on all that as well with me. But then so now you come to this site. So now we've got the next episode coming, and our next episode finale coming on New Year's Eve and whatnot. And I'll be doing my review of that afterwards. The next day. So the January 1st, I'll put out I'll do a review. And then but I'll be discussing some of those things and whatnot and later. I will definitely talk about it Friday on Nerd Fights. So on January 2nd, don't miss Nerd Fights, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's going to have me, Salty. Hopefully we'll get Danny Dork Knight to talk a little bit about that as well. But that'll give us an opportunity to sort of say, hey, where were you at in the whole thing? What is your take or play on that whole aspect of that? I think the other thing I really wanted to talk about or get an opportunity to sort of talk about was when you contrast Stranger Things with the excellent Andy Muschietti Welcome to Derry that just finished on HBO, which, by the way, powerhouse. I really wish that I had been a little bit more engaged and able to do something, a recording of that. I still might, just for my own personal satisfaction, to talk about it. But that show was amazing. That show was gangbusters. That show blew my socks off. And as I said in my original reviews of the first two episodes, I am not a horror fan like that. This thing made me a believer. It was so good. Plus, it got me really interested in a lot of other Stephen King properties, the way they interwove these things. Because now in my headcanon, those things all exist in a very similar space. And I love that. Um, Seeing more folks have joined the stream. Thank you guys. I really appreciate seeing all you. And by all means, if you have questions or whatnot, it's a live stream. We're going to talk about a lot of different aspects of all this. And actually, I think you guys are mostly on. Twitter, which is great. So yeah, so it's just us, man. We're here. X, Twitter, whatever. So yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of all these things. I believe that there's a world in which we begin to build better these stories because again, you look at it and what it's doing. No pun intended. It was fascinating, and it knew the assignment. I'm like the Duffers over here, guys. You build this thing, which again, this gets into Netflix and how it functions, and my fears and concerns about Netflix buying Warner Brothers. Though I lean more toward them over the Skydance Paramount deal, mainly because I don't like Ellison and I think he's shady, and I'm not real. I mean, I think they're all shady on some level, but I feel like Ted Sarandos is a jerk better than Ellis is shady. And I'm like, you know what? If I have to sit here, it's the lesser of two evils, whatever. But like I said, you see something like how Stranger Things has been handled. Stranger Things, I would argue, is one of the major properties that put Netflix genuinely on the map creatively. They were always on the map as a content generator and whatever else. But I feel like Stranger Things really pushed them over the top and made Netflix the kind of place where you're like, well, I have to go. Like, I think Stranger Things is probably the first thing I've seen that to me was worth getting a subscription back in the day. So now, so then right now, Stranger Things is they're genuinely facing down the barrel of the Game of Thrones phenomenon, which is you have a strong, massive run only to fall on your face flat. And you ask, well, what the heck, man? Why? Why did that happen? And it's one of those things where I don't know if there's mandates from people, because you got to remember Netflix has a very different information and algorithmic data set analytics. Their analytics are closer to ours here on YouTube, but over on YouTube than they are like other networks and stuff, or TV networks and things like that, especially movie studios and the other. So they know things. That's the first thing. And they generally speaking can give good information. Hey, this many episodes, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. Like they understand what makes their particular algorithm tick, and they can give that information to showrunners, and hopefully that stuff, it shouldn't steer your ball. It shouldn't steer your creative. If you know that your audience is going to be heavy in the first third, then you better make that first third of the season the most compelling and make it so people want to continue. And I feel like that's what Stranger Things ultimately has done. But then you get to this season, and it's fallen on its face. I'm here to the end, obviously, and we'll see what happens. I'd love to have Baby Know It All and Boyfriend Know It All on the show soon, because we watched it together, and man, did they have opinions! And I'm talking like literally, we're about 15 minutes into this season 5 part 2 of the first episode of that, and out of nowhere, Boyfriend Know It All is like, "What is this writing?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So he's like they're getting hardcore in terms of understanding what they're supposed to be doing, what the series is supposed to be doing. So yeah, I'm excited again for what the overall. I want to see the resolution. I know what I'm not excited for. I'm not excited for the Duffers are like talking about this. There's a spinoff series, I guess, in the works. Which my whole feeling is, well, I hope they learn from this and give us something a little different, because this has a very lost feel to it. It started strong, and now it's sort of petering out toward the end. And I hope that doesn't ruin them. Mind you, I feel like it ruined the two creators of Game of Thrones, the series, because I haven't seen them do much since. And it's one of those things where if you can't stick a landing and you have a very angry fan base, what's left? What are you doing? Like, seriously, what are we doing? And so that's my outlook overall. So again, you have I feel like when you go into this, if you don't go into it wanting to understand more about the characters, or like, how do you do a spinoff of Stranger Things? And the first thing he says in an interview recently is he's quoted as saying, actually, I saw the video. He goes, we're closing up everything happening here in Hawkins, and this is going to be a new story with a new location and new characters. So it's not Stranger Things. You're just doing something else. That's okay. That's what Stephen King did. Stephen King did It. Stephen King did the other, Pet Cemetery and The Shining and all those things. Like, he's all these aspects that now we see coming together in a really nice way. And so you can do that, and I hope it works for them. I know that if they're not careful, this is going to give a lot of people a bad taste in their mouth for the Duffers, and they're going to have an issue bouncing back. I guarantee you. Just look at the Wachowskis, how they was very unforgiving after Speed Racer, though they had a desire, though that was on purpose. And I contend Speed Racer is not as bad as most people think it is. At least that's my personal contention. So again, would love to hear your thoughts more about that. So yeah, I don't know. I need to figure out ultimately where I where I settle in. You got to remember, I have intimate knowledge of of Netflix and how they do things, and so I feel like when you talk about Stranger Things or other stuff that's come, like the movies, when you like right now we're looking at down the barrel of this whole Netflix and Warner Brothers, and everyone's scared. I mean, people in the industry are worried about there being lack of jobs, but at the same time, it's not like Hollywood's been doing a whole lot to help engender job growth in the movie industry. They're and then you have AI, which everyone's saying is the big democratizer, which I'm like, hey, whatever. And I'm not even getting into that. Trust me, that conversation. But at the same time, it's like that's the kind of stuff that's making everybody want to find out what's next, what comes next. Terrestrial television's dying very quickly, and so it's one of the reasons why Netflix is like, yeah, no, we don't want any of that stuff from you guys from Warner Brothers. We don't want TNT. We don't want those channels. We don't want any of that stuff. We don't want Discovery. We want all those things. Y'all can spin that off into something else and go make money with that if you want, because they know there's no money to be made there. There really isn't. Money is being made here in streaming, obviously, and in theatrical still to some extent, more or less. So we're entering a new era, that's for sure. I know Wednesday I'm going to talk more about sort of where the movie industry is headed, as well as sort of where things like the release window and stuff and whatnot. And I would love, very open to hearing your thoughts about any of those things. So feel free to drop a comment. We will engage on that level to sort of understand better what's coming down the pike, what's before us and what's coming. So yeah, I think when it comes to a lot of these series that have been out, especially with things that are on the way, because there's a ton of things that are on the way. You've got all kinds of stuff Fallout is happening. I love me some Fallout. Are you guys watching Fallout? God, I hope you are. Fallout is amazing. I didn't know anything about the game other than I had originally played the mobile game. And then I started in on the show, which got me into the games. So now I have a PlayStation. I ordered the game and I played it, and I love the game. I think it's great, and I think they've really captured that nuance of Fallout really well. So hopefully you're watching it. Walton Goggins is stupid amazing as the Ghoul. That guy. I want him to just do everything, be in everything. He's so good. And it started out as he was always that sort of fast talking, southern voiced slime ball, kind of like he was in Ant-Man and the Wasp. You know what I mean? Like I hated him in Ant-Man and the Wasp because I'd seen that character a million times from him. So seeing him do other things, because he's such a character actor when you allow him the opportunity, especially when he's in the Fabulous Gemstones and whatnot and some other, like, he's a really good actor. And so he brings, especially because they have him in Fallout in those two time frames, the past where before pre-Fallout and then now 200 years later post-Fallout. I love what he's doing. And likewise, I feel like each of the actors and whatnot are all doing some really incredible stuff. The part that people don't understand the most when it comes to things like Fallout is it wants to constantly be, people want to compare it to, well, video games are this and video game movies are that. Look, video game movies have been back. Mario Brothers, $1 billion. Sonic, every one of them is amazing, and they literally have put the next one into production almost immediately on the heels of the release of one of them. And it's one of those, and it's a juggernaut that doesn't seem like it's ready to slow down at all. So video game movies have been here. Have they had a ton of failures? Absolutely, but they've got a bunch of successes too. So I push back on that idea. Okay, and I feel like the more you get into things like, again, Fallout and whatnot is brilliant. And you look at it as each of these things I've talked about have been based on an IP of some kind. Stranger Things arguably is it's is it based on an IP? It's based on a legend, an urban legend of sorts, and then it sort of became its own thing. Uh, and Stranger Things, how much are you clued in to that lore? The whole drop, and I'll talk about it more when I do my video. I didn't have an issue other than the fact that this is a lot of new information that I feel like that feels like you just invented it. The whole idea of the abyss and they've come to find out the upside down is actually just the wormhole, but it is not actually its own thing. Also, is this the first time they've gone to the extent to find out, oh, there's a wall on the outside? Like, how did we not know this? Or how are we only now discovering this? And I guess they haven't really done much deep exploration or whatever, but whatever. But I digress, if you will. Thank you again. I see everybody kind of showing up, and I appreciate you guys so much, especially over on X, because I love each and every one of you. And hopefully you're sharing this thing and let everybody know, because we're going to be doing this again every Monday and Wednesday. We're going to do it. It's going to be a lunchtime break, 1 hour long, noon to 1. As time permits. It might go a little longer depending on the interactions we have, but also at the same time, I may go a little shorter depending on how fast some of these stories come out and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I'm looking forward to this relationship. And then, of course, Friday night is Friday Night Nerd Fights, where I'm on there. And you can always, of course, find me as well on the Zero to Heroes podcast or Absolute Zeros podcast with those guys. They're a lot of fun. And but yeah, the more I look at what we're looking at, because you have, let's see, Fallout's coming, a whole bunch of re-releases coming out this year, next year coming January. We're going to be seeing 28 years later the Bone Temple, and whatnot, and a lot of other things that I'm looking forward to talking about. And hopefully you guys will have an opportunity to sort of chime in yourselves and let me know some of your thoughts on some of these things. I know the more we get close to the super movies, we're going to have some controversial takes, and chances are I'll have everybody in the chat blowing me up and Snyder Bros going nuts about stuff and whatnot. That'll be fun when that happens. So hopefully you stick around for some of those things. But yeah, as time permits and as stories allow, I like to talk about what's happening in the world and sort of see what is happening out there. If you're following this whole Paramount trying to come in and coerce Warner Brothers, that's not going to happen. Mind you, I think there may be some issues that they face regulatorily down the road, but for the most part, I don't think Paramount's got a chance or a prayer in hell when it comes to trying to acquire things. These are crazy times we live in, man. Not only for entertainment, but everything going on. Mainly because there's a lot of times the stories that used to feel like they were stories that are cautionary tales now feel like you're like, man, a little too real, a little too much like reality, and that's true too. So, anyway, all right, guys, I move more toward sort of the back half of this whole thing, and I want to talk a little bit about a lot of the there's right now this whole idea of streaming and this whole idea of the theater experience. And I love going to the movies. I think you guys love going to the movies too, but I also love watching stuff at home. And there's more than one movie that I know that I'm not going to most likely see unless I get a screener of some sort. I'm not really going to go make an effort to go to the movies and see it. Let's talk about Avatar. Avatar is the juggernaut that won't stop. I don't care how you feel about it. I don't care if you like it. I don't care what you thought. It is a cultural juggernaut. Now, mind you, I would argue that culturally speaking, it's not as impactful other than itself in the abstract. So there are people out there who make arguments, like Joe Russo and a couple others on X and whatnot. Love the guy, by the way, he makes a very compelling argument for why. Because my immediate response is, okay, cool. Let me know who the name characters other than Jake Sully that you know of, because they're clearly working those characters and stuff out, and you're getting generations of new characters. And I don't even know if Cameron's going to finish this thing. And I would hope he would, just for the sake of being a completionist. But at the same time, I don't know. How did you feel about the most recent Avatar movie? I honestly felt a little bit when I was talking to Danny Dorknight about it over on Nerd Fights last Friday, his first words were, the 3D was so beautiful and so compelling. And it made me go, so why did you watch it? Like, if just for that? I don't know that I'm going to a movie just because the 3D looks compelling. I go to a movie for all of the aspects of it. Yes, the visual stuff, but the story, the behavior, how the people are acting, what the plot's telling me, like why the themes and all that stuff. Was the music good? Is the effects stand up? But again, what are the characters doing? And is it compelling enough for me to want to watch for 2.5, 3 hours, whatever the going run times are? And I feel like that I will never put anything past James Cameron. I believe James Cameron has been a revolutionary filmmaker in terms of pushing the technology forward of all kind. And I think that's when you get to that place where you sit here and you go, okay, this is an amazing series of movies for various reasons. Anybody who argues with you and tries to tell you that these are like the deepest storytelling, stop it. Just stop selling things. Knock it off. Just knock it off. It's not real. Okay. It's just this is colonization stories. It's Pocahontas. It's anything you want to call it. In terms of that story being told, it's Christopher Columbus. It's whatever. It's conquering and taking and blah 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 and raping and pillaging the countryside of the planet. Whatever. But none of those things are unique. And in fact, other than the window dressing of big blue cats, which are gorgeous, I feel, as somebody said it themselves, and I have to agree with this assessment, you introduced this fire. We'll call them the Fire Tribe for those of us who are familiar with the other Avatar series. Okay, you introduce us to the Fire Tribe, an arguably compelling tribe who has forsaken Aowa, their god. So they are a heretic tribe. And then you don't tell us much about them anymore. Very surface. We got the info dump, explanation dump version of that story. And in no way, shape, or form was it compelling in terms of what it was doing or saying or being that I thought anyway. So I feel like when it comes to the Avatar series, they are 100% style over substance. People would argue, well, the story they're telling blah, blah, is the substance and this and that. Okay. Is it? Like, is it really? Not for me. I don't know. I feel like I've heard, mainly because at some point in the second hour, I just started feeling like I was being preached to or talked at. And especially when everyone's saying the same thing over and over again. And then you introduce this new thing. I'm not going to spoil it any more than I normally do. But I don't know. Would love to hear again your thoughts on that whole aspect. And is Avatar again? I love these movies. I think they're beautiful. I don't have a problem. I didn't go. I wasn't ready to go see it in the theaters, other than the fact I wanted to see a trailer. But I didn't go for that reason. I ended up going to actually see the movie, which is good. So. Thank God, because I don't know that I could have brought myself to buy a ticket just to go see those trailers, especially if there's one every week or whatever else. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the fact that but they're doing good. I mean, I know a lot of us are geek culture people. I got, Marvel back here behind me and whatnot. But if I got Star Trek, Doctor Who, and some other stuff as well that I'm into. And I love talking about those things as well. But it feels a lot like Disney's been hitting their best stride with their animated stuff, with the live action remakes. And I use the air quotes because they're basically just another form of animation. How to Train Your Dragon, wonderful, excellent. Lilo and Stitch, excellent. The Moana live action looks stupid good. I haven't had a chance to see much more of it than that. So, but at the end of the day, these are huge, these are big, and they're doing wonderfully. So now what? Now what? There's people who argue, oh well, like DC and what they're going to do, and what does the potential buyout for Warner Bros. And all that mean for DC Studios and those kind of movies, basically superhero movies. I would argue DC's in fine hands right now. I don't think there's anything to worry about, and that's not me. I don't want to get into a confrontation with everybody about it. I just honestly, DC is very much moving in the direction that Marvel was in a while back, and Marvel's trying to flounder out of some mismanagement or poor decision making that happened recently. Same thing with Star Wars and whatnot. Meanwhile, all the other stuff out there is doing well. Indie movies aren't doing incredible, but they're not sucking, and I think that's a good thing. I hate the fact that come award season, everything's like this movie's great and that movie's great, and some of them are ones I haven't seen. I do need to start expanding my view of some of these movies because I am aspiring to be a critic and want to join some of the critical communities. So that's one of the reasons why I have a Substack where I do my written reviews of some things, so I can really kind of break down nuance and talk about those things. Substack.com/Mr. Know-It-All. But yeah, at the end of the day, these are all for entertainment. These are all for us to get excited about. And the one thing I absolutely, and I'll live and die on this soapbox. Fandoms we don't need to be toxic in our fandoms. The fact that I like something or that you don't like something should not define our relationship. Back in the day, I've said this numerous times. When I started doing the Mr. Know-It-All show and the channel and whatnot, I did it because I'd go to see movies and stuff with my friends or watch a show or a series, and we'd get together at whatever, McDonald's or some restaurant or whatever, or a coffee shop, and we would just talk. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this and that, blah, blah, blah. My friends would be like, you did? You liked that part? Oh, that sucked. And I'm like, you're a jerk, you're a dick, blah, blah. But when we were finished, we were like, all right, cool, I'll talk to you next week. That was how it was. And so people have gotten so tribal in terms of like, if it's not this or if it's not that, not to mention the rage baiters out there who I'm freezing all those guys out. The minute I run into that nonsense, I just block it or mute it because I don't need it. I don't need that stress in my life. I don't need that negativity in my life. Not to mention, I don't need the negativity people throw my way. And I just ignore that nonsense. Unless you have a conversation. If you want to have a real conversation, I'm down. And so I feel like that's the as we move forward as a fandom, as we move forward as a people, whether it's Marvel, DC, or Star Wars, or Star Trek, or even Disney in general, with a lot of their animated stuff and whatnot, I feel like we have to start trying to be a little more peaceful in our discourse. Am I a fan of all the decisions Stranger Things are making? No. If you love it, awesome. By all means, awesome. Please do. And I believe there is a level of appreciation to be had for things that I don't like, and the fact that you do and it gives you joy, that's all that's necessary, man. That's all that's necessary. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing the next show again on Wednesday. I'm gonna put together some more things and hopefully have some more visual aids to go with it. It's funny, the decision to move forward happened, and then the weekend got busy as happens on the weekends. So I hope that you guys will give me an opportunity and we'll keep chugging along this thing. If you're not subscribed to any of the various channels, please do follow us, like us, whatever. Would absolutely love to include you as part of the Know-It-All Nation. And hopefully you get a chance to see some of the other projects that I'm working on, the other guys I collab with, because they're all wonderful people. My friends are amazing, and hopefully I can count you among them. But yeah, as for me, guys, that's going to pretty much do it for me today. And I can't wait to see you again. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll talk again on Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all. Bye, guys.